Hello, hi everyone. Welcome back to Woo Can Cook. My name is Wesley, and this is a show where we are slowly cooking our way through all of the food from my childhood. Today we're diving back into the wonderful world of Thai street food with a pad Gra Prow inspired by this Hangover Part 2 scene.
Like monkey drug mules. He take coke to Via and deliver cash to dealer. He middleman. Dealer never handle drug directly. He clean.
Okay, so breezing right past all of the illicit drugs in this scene, the market where our drug deal is taking place is one of the famed Bangkok street food night markets where you can find a wide assortment of quick, cheap, and delicious wok-fried meals. Most commonly, these street food dishes are associated with the drinking culture that is commonplace in Bangkok and are usually purchased from stalls coming right out of the wok after a night of heavy drinking, then eaten outside on the street while hopefully you sober up a little bit. Now, for those who have been following along, we have done a handful of noodle dishes originating from Thai street food already, and have also touched on the similar cultures of Taiwanese street food, Korean street food, and Hong Kong street food as well. More specifically, we'll be cooking up a Thai stir-fry known as pad Gra Prow, which, for those who are not familiar, is a stir-fry that prominently features a minced meat stir-fried with veggies. Today we'll be using green beans, and then tossed in two iconically Thai aromatics, some Thai chilies, and holy basil. Then we're going to be tossing that in a rich dark soy sauce and fish sauce base, and finally rounding all of this out with a lacy wok fried egg for a classic Thai finishing touch. Okay, so let's get into it. Alright, so kicking things off, as with many of our stir-fries, we're starting off with our aromatic veggies here first. This is 4 cloves of crushed and minced garlic, followed by 1 inch or about 1 tablespoon of finely minced ginger. Then next, getting into our iconically Thai flavors, this is 4 to 6 Thai chilies, which I'm removing from their stems, then slicing thinly. As with any time that these bad boys come up, remember that Thai chilies can get pretty spicy, especially since we're leaving their seeds in. So dial this number up or down depending on how spicy you want your dish to be today. I'm using 6 here, which is at about a medium level of spiciness. Then next is our basil here. Now, most iconically, a pad Gra Prow is done with holy basil, which is a spicy, aromatic form of basil with clove-like flavors that is fairly common in Thai cuisine. But if you're like me here in the States, holy basil is a pretty tough one to track down, so today we're going to be going with some Thai basil, which is similarly aromatic, but with more of a licorice and star anise quality to it. So do what you need to make it work, but if you can't find either of these, I would say don't try and swap in the sweet basil that you'll more commonly find in American grocery stores, because that's not going to be very similar at all. We're picking about a cup's worth of this stuff from their stems, then setting it aside while we dive into our veggies next. First up here is a single large shallot, which I'm removing the root and stem ends, then slicing thinly. Then next are my string beans, or green beans, depending on who you ask. I'm cutting these into about 1-inch pieces, giving them a rinse and shaking out as much water as possible. We'll be searing these in the wok in a bit, so we want to do our very best to get as much of this water out as possible, or else we'll have trouble keeping the wok hot during that sear. Finally, moving on to our ground meat today, I'm using some ground chicken here for our version, about 8 ounces or half a pound of it. For your own attempts, ground beef, turkey, or pork would also work nicely as well, as long as we have some good fat content in our meats. I'm doing my favorite quick marinade here, which some folks may have started to recognize from many of the other Woo Can Cook recipes by now. This is 4 tablespoons of soy sauce to start, followed by half a teaspoon of white pepper and half a teaspoon of cornstarch to keep things nice and tender in our wok fry. We're giving this a toss to combine, then setting it aside to marinate for 30 minutes or up to 1 hour while we dive into our sauce next. Okay, so over here in my mixing bowl, we're going to be assembling a sauce base that is rich in umami with some slight sweetness to it, which should complement our aromatic chilies and basil really well. This is 4 tablespoons of soy sauce to start, followed by our fishy umami next, 2 tablespoons of fish sauce, and 1 tablespoon of oyster sauce for a more deeper caramel quality. Next up is a single tablespoon of dark soy sauce, followed by a tablespoon of brown sugar for some sweetness, a bit of lime juice for some brightness, and a quarter cup of stock to help loosen things up. Lastly, I'm seasoning this all with a pinch of kosher salt to taste, and we're heading over to the stove. Alright, over on the stove, we're kicking things off with a bit of batch cooking today, which is a technique that you might not come across in most night market stalls, since they're cooking in wok burners with much higher heating quantities. For our purposes though, our batch cook is going to be useful to compensate for the lower heat output of our home burner, which will help keep the wok nice and hot during our cook. I've got my wok heating as hot as possible, then I'm adding 4 tablespoons of peanut oil to start, and as always, long yao for that nice non-stick surface. Then going in first are my aromatics. This is my garlic, ginger, and Thai chilies to start. I'm blooming this for about 10 seconds until fragrant, then I'm dropping in my ground chicken here next, doing my very best to break up any larger clumps before they get into the wok. As you can see, I did not do a very good job, but that's okay because we can break it up in the wok too if needed. We're giving our ground chicken a toss for about 2 to 3 minutes until cooked through. Then here's our batch cook coming into play. I'm removing everything from the wok, wiping it down, and letting it reheat. Now, this is important on our home range today because it doesn't put out enough heat to keep the wok ripping hot once it fills up like a wok burner does. If we leave that chicken in, we would end up overfilling the wok and then cooking our green beans on medium heat, which is not so great. This is how you'll end up with a porridge stir fry, so don't skip this step. I'm adding another 4 tablespoons of peanut oil here, then giving 1 more long yao and gently dropping in my green beans. These are gonna kick up some oil splatter if they're wet, so be warned. I'm spreading these bad boys out, then letting them sear undisturbed for 2.5 minutes before tossing. If you've done this right, your green beans should have picked up some nice searing and color here. Then next I'm adding about a quarter cup of water to the wok, covering it with a lid and letting this steam for 90 seconds to help us get a nice tender green bean. 90 seconds later, I'm removing the cap, giving it 1 more toss to burn off any remaining water, and then adding our shallots to the wok. Now, if you're wondering, Wesley, isn't that too many shallots? That seems like a lot of shallots. Then yes, you are right. This is too many shallots. So I'm pulling out about half of them, then giving things a toss for about 1 minute, then adding my chicken back to the wok and tossing to combine. Then next I'm adding my sauce mixture here, about a quarter cup at a time, and stopping to taste after each turn. Be very careful not to over season at this point, which will be very easy to do with anything that includes dark soy sauce. Finally, I'm removing this all from the wok, killing the heat, and dropping in our Thai basil or holy basil if that's what you've got. Either way, whatever it is that you are using, our basil is very delicate, so we're just going to use the residual heat of our stir fry to bloom out their aromatic qualities. Anything more aggressive than that is going to overcook that basil at this point. Finally, last up, I'm wiping down the wok 1 more time, adding another 4 tablespoons of peanut oil and giving 1 more long yao. We're gonna do a quick wok fried egg on high heat here, which if you've got one, works especially well in a nice round bottomed wok because the oil is gonna pool up at the center of the wok like this. This is gonna help us keep the egg where the oil is concentrated, essentially submerging that egg in oil, making for the laciest, crispiest fried egg that you'll ever manage. I'm spooning a little bit of oil on top to help things set, then very gently removing this from my wok. Finally, we're serving things up over a bit of rice, finishing with our fried egg, and we're ready to eat. Okay, so as some of you may know, I'm a sucker for pretty much anything that's finished with a fried egg, but damn, this stir fry is delicious. The rich umami qualities from our dark soy sauce and fish sauce complement the array of aromatic flavors that come from our basil and Thai chili to create that really iconically Thai flavor that I know I'm honestly chasing every time that I cook Thai food. Then those dense green beans and ground chicken pair well over rice for a nice hearty meal that definitely feels very appropriate to eat after a night of drinking. Round this all out with a nice lacy fried egg, and you've got yourself everything that you need to recover from a hangover. Lastly, if you're like me, stir fries like this fall right into my wheelhouse, with the added bonus that it involves some aromatic flavors that don't come up very often in the world of Chinese stir fries that I more often swim in. So if you're looking to expand your stir fry repertoire, this is going to be a great one to take a shot at. Okay, so that's it everyone. I hope you enjoyed this and I hope you give this one a shot. This is definitely a Thai stir fry that I've used at least once to chase off a hangover. So if this happens to be you, you're in the right place. We'll be cooking through this one live this coming Tuesday at 6:30 PST right here on the YouTube channel. So tune in then and cook along with me if you'd like. For the Bay Area locals, the Wu Can Cook fried rice pop-up is back at the Hayward Farmers Market tomorrow afternoon until 1 p.m. So swing by and come say hi if you can. More about that at wucancook.com/eats. As always, like, comment, subscribe, share, push some buttons, and I'll see you soon.